Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Ask DeAnna Anything. I'm Abby, and this is DeAnna, and you're here this morning. Congrats. DeAnna Batdorf is an Ayurvedic practitioner, mind body educator, lymphatic specialist, and DeAnna Essentials formulator. Nothing is TMI for DeAnna. The DeAnna Essentials mission is a place for all people to heal, learn, and grow. We provide a community of support to empower individuals with knowledge, tools, and skills for their optimal well-being. So welcome. How are you doing this morning, DeAnna?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what questions we have today. And there always seems to be some kind of theme that shows up even when we don't have themes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of curious to see what today's is. And yeah, maybe what I would do as an opener here is just remind everybody about a few things coming up. And I'm just super excited about, like, I'm sort of even hesitating because I'm like, if I really sit to think about what I'll be doing in the next 2 weeks before I even leave to Portugal to join my class, I will probably do about 400 breast checks.
Whoa.
I will probably check more than 50 uteruses for placement and proper placement of uterus, the female compass. And then I'm off to Portugal. So everyone's like, oh, are you in the windy down? I'm like, I got a pretty big wind up. And then how rewarding is it going to feel for me to get on that plane and feel like I can pat myself on the back for basically using my my health to other people's benefit. It's something I think about a lot. Being that I'm kind of in the middle of menopause, and that's kind of a new thing, obviously. I feel healthy. I feel alive. I feel vibrant. I feel I have longevity. Even when I'm tired, it's not like I feel wrecked. And I just figure if you're one of those people in the world who has the value of health, to me, there's something about it that makes me feel like it's my duty. And this might be personal. I'm not saying this is what everyone needs to do. Everyone's got their own personal duty. But I just want to use it wisely. And I want to make sure I want people to benefit from it. And so I just think about that. I'm like, am I a little bit tired? And I'm right at the end of that, even though I'm working in Portugal, it's like vacation, that little, you're all, and I'm like, I got a lot, and I'm glad I have the energy for it.
And that's so inspiring for people who are really entering this healing journey, or if you ever have that sense of guilt or shame, oh, I shouldn't be taking this time for myself to learn how to care for myself. It's that's what has allowed you to be this incredible caretaker for so many other people.
It's true. I've been as best I can because I'm human and I make all kinds of errors. And I've told people all the time, I am not the most disciplined person in the world. I've had to learn that. And I just, really invite people to consider what you're not good at. You can make it a practice, or you can count on the people around you to kind of, help. And so just, where do you need help and where do you maybe just need to practice a little more until it becomes more natural. So that discipline is something I've had to grow into, and I have my own human errors. And so, it's important to let that be part of your health too. Oh, I'm not going to do this all perfect. I'm going to do it the best I can. And when I feel like I'm tipping over, then I'm going to be like, well, what do I need to do to get back up? Instead of worrying about the tipping over. So I don't know. Yeah. I hear a whole lot of young practitioners, because they study with me, doing this I don't think I can work, that much, or my hands are going to get sore, and I'm always kind of but you take care of your hands so they don't get sore. I've been doing deep tissue for 35 years. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah. My hands are strong. They never hurt. How do I do all that? But, I'm going to just leave everyone thinking, put your hands to your heart and just think about what it is to run on gratitude. Yes, we need rest. Hey, body mapping starts November 5th, by the way. But what is that about? That's rest. breathe, eat, drink, individualism, and what are some of the processes of self-care that can allow you to get the most out of your eat, breathe, rest, drink, our daily practices. They're fundamental, and they connect us to hormones we'll be talking about, and how do hormones replenish? They do it by rest. And we talk about the 7 tissues in the body, so many beautiful things. So hopefully you all will look up the My Body Mapping course and consider setting your foundation so you can go the distance in your projects, your work, your relationships. Like, we don't just naturally do that. We have to replenish and keep that, energy alive. But you can also do some running on gratitude, and that's a mindset. That means you stay more in the positive versus the I'm working so hard negative. And I go there too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go, oh, Daddy. I'm so glad he's willing to be all, oh, honey, really, when you say you're working too hard, I trust you really are. I'm like, okay, yeah. He's like, where are you gonna, bring it, reel it in. So hope you have those people in your life that you can do that with.
Those are some good Virgo season mantras. Just a little bit of discipline can go a long way, and then allowing that spaciousness. Like, once you have those foundations, then it creates that space. Like, okay, now I have the energy and the motivation to do all the other things that I love doing.
So true.
Well, speaking of the 7 tissues, today many of our questions are down in that 7th layer, the reproductive system. And I wonder how many are the result of last week's conversation about hormones and about cycles. And I think that must have prompted a lot of great questions. So
I hope so. There's so much more to say.
Yeah, totally. So what causes my breasts to swell and become tender right before menstruation? Does it include a hormone imbalance? It's very uncomfortable and causing my breast size to increase over time. Are there things I can do to prevent this discomfort and swelling from happening? Elizabeth.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. So first off, when I'm working with, like young women's groups, and I like working with more than just women, but I am one, so it happens. And when I'm in that realm, I'm always telling people and my clients that sore breasts and swelling breasts are a symptom. So for us to be being told that that is normal and you need to live with it is not fair. It's not respectful, and it's not honoring what symptoms are. When your body is talking to you, that's the body mapping concept. Is like listening and being able to say what's going on here. So when your breasts are sore or swelling, there is lymph. So first the lymph drain, and I have a great webinar that's just straight up breast care from the Women's Herbal Symposium. And I have a lymph care too. But the drain is right below the subclavian, or it's at the subclavian vein, it's below the clavicle. And that lymph is everywhere, but this is the main channels, and it runs from the armpit all the way into our chest or breast tissue. And what happens is if this lymph river gets clogged up, if it's too dry and then you have hormones trying to flood through, then it's like you have liquid hormones running through a gravelly riverbank. So it's, for me, I feel like I do river restoration for a living body, river restoration. That's literally what I feel like I do. It's like, do you have a dam in the river? It's going to push back and pressurize and even cause like a swelling to the breast tissue. And that's because your body is like getting ready to dump a bunch of hormones if you're going to menstruate. You know, your body's job is to dump those hormones out every month. That's why women menstruate. And so as those hormones are flooding and getting ready to release, if they can't move through the channels and get to the drain, because that goes to the bloodstream, your lymph river meets your bloodstream, then it goes and gets recycled or dumped by your liver. And then your liver sends over to your spleen on the left, your immune organ, sends immune function, and then it goes back to lymph. So the whole system is actually lymph, blood, liver, spleen, back to lymph. And everything is draining to this region all around our areolas and our nipples and our armpits. So I kid you not, literally, where am I going to say right now, Abby? I'm going to say, touch yourself. That's what I'm going to say. My favorite thing to say.
And hydration.
I'm going to say hydration. But yeah, touch yourself. I want you to find the sore, soften it up, you know, really rub those breasts or that chest tissue. Make sure you're pumping the armpit. Make sure you don't have any pain or lumpy glunkies that are all kind of sticky or gravelly up at the chest. The more you open this space up, and I'm talking like 10 minutes a day, could shift something even in the first month. And then you'll start realizing how comfortable you get with just touching your breasts. Because, you know, we also don't touch our breasts, shame reasons, sexuality reasons, which is connected to that shame. And that is just horrid. And like, I am not buying that. I can touch myself wherever I want to, as often as I want to, as much as I want to. And you can massage that pain away. And so then a couple months later, with just you kind of getting in there a little bit, like you are going to be blown away at how little pain. And when that pain comes, it's like an injury. It's, you know, pain, your body has an immune response that comes to your rescue. That's why when we injure, we swell. So when we have that much pain and that much kind of stuck in there as things are trying to move through, what happens is your immune system gets involved. That's your lymph. Lymph is your immune system. It runs through the immune system. That lymph, or your immune function runs through your lymph system. So they're one and the same. And we really just got to rub that pain away. And we're also not being taught to do that either. We're not even taught that we can do anything for our pain. So that's a real unfortunate thing when you start rubbing your body and the pain goes away. And then you're like, where else am I in pain? And what might that pain be from? And what am I rubbing out of my life and my body? You know, so rub that shame out of there. I heard in the languaging of this question, I heard
Looks like the Wi-Fi's okay.
Good.
Looks like you're back live. Thanks, everyone.
Well, if you missed that last little piece, I was just finishing up, but I was saying the more you move everything and get that draining and move that pain through, you'll just notice that they won't swell. You won't get that extra water weight and you won't get the pain both.
That's so inspiring. I'm definitely going to start my period in the next few days. And so I can feel that like achiness in my lower abdomen and around my breast too. So I'll definitely be keeping all that in mind too.
And it has no bearing on when you're menstruating. Like you could do it when the pain is higher, like now. You can do it while you're menstruating, after you're menstruating. Like there is never a time where that lymph is going to affect you. In fact, it can only help you.
That's awesome. Well, actually, another question has a lot to do with this. Someone is wondering, what is your position on guashaing while menstruating?
Oh yeah, look at that. What a good segue. You can gua sha anytime you want. You can even, like, a lot of times, like, yes, your breasts and everything I just said could be with your hands. It could be with a salt scrub. It could be with a dry brush. It could be with a little hand massager, or it could be with a gua sha. So, and you can even do, slide cupping. You can get a cupping set, and you could literally put the cup on there, and you could do some slide cupping with oil, and you just like really work all around, and that'll get a lot of that fluid drained out. So absolutely. And then let's talk about guashaing the uterus.
Yeah.
Like, is that okay with menstruation?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it is. And if the question doesn't come up about menstrual cramps, I'm gonna bring that question in if it's not one of your questions.
Think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll start first just answering this question. Is like most women, like we used to go the red tent.
Mm-hmm.
We would rest, we would end our menses, we would squat on rocks, collect the blood, feed the plants, and then we would douche and then go back into society.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will say, gosh, that's so primitive to like isolate. I think there's some negatives in that, but I think it came from, it was actually created and born out of women wanting to be in community and wanting to kind of like have their space to just rest and bleed, and that's pretty powerful to me. So in that, we no longer, really even sometimes have that luxury, so like we have to work. Mm-hmm. We got to keep working. We got to keep doing whatever we're doing. And we forget how much we engage our core, which is upward motion. And if you're someone who kind of sucks it in and sucks it up, you might be somebody who really takes a long time to let down and just let it flow, because you might be hiked up in your psoas or in your pelvis, and that uterus needs to, flush through the cervix and then into the vaginal wall for that menses to flow. And so we don't rest anymore, and we end up with a lot of issues of not cleansing completely. So somebody will keep going, they'll have some release of blood, and some women will even kind of be like, I don't want to bleed too much. I got to go to work and I don't want to worry about my flow. And I'm like, but you want to get all that out of there month to month. So the gua sha is awesome at that, because you can actually go from your pubis bone, center of your pelvis, and you can just massage upward to the belly button. There's a lot of techniques on just doing this type of massage. I haven't studied Arvigo, but I totally respect it. And a lot of my students have. And it's just a massage technique of keeping your uterus in place and tonified. And you can do that with a gua sha, and it'll just kind of, like, it's like a balloon muscle. It's a pretty strong muscle, your uterus, and you're gua shaing the edges of it. So if there's any compacted blood plaque, you're working the outside of that uterus, and it sloughs that plaque layer off from old blood that maybe didn't let down, and it allows you to get completely clear of all those hormones. So sometimes I'll find somebody has an accumulation of like hormone die-off, and that's why they're getting like acne on the chin, or rashes in between their thighs, or things that come up because they're not sloughing every month. And the gua sha is brilliant with that. But yeah, you can gua sha your whole body any single day, anytime. The only time I would ever refrain from like deep gua sha and definitely full body lymphatic is when you're in the very middle of a virus or infection, when you have a fever. Even after the fever drops, like, go for it. You want to get your immune system working for you. But it's literally the only time. And then, like, if I like newly injured myself, knock on wood, and I had a bunch of swelling and a bunch of pain, that's a different kind of pain that I'm not going to try to address with the gua sha. So I'm going to rest with injury on the gua sha. I could gua sha other places though. If I injured my knee, I could open up my hips and help it out a lot, But yeah, you can use that gua sha on your uterus, on your breasts, on your chest. I even talk to, I even talk to men about, like, you can gua sha the sides of your scrotum I even recently was helping a client that has like a little bit of a excess buildup. You know, they called it a tumor and kind of scared him, but it's like an excess tissue buildup on one of his testicles. And I literally was teaching how to gently and effectively, you know, with the smooth instead of like the edge of a gua sha, but how to massage that, and that it's okay to massage that and to break up some of that tissue. And, you know, and I'm not saying that with cancer. I'm saying that with like some random growth or some, you know, simple little, you know, scar tissue buildup, which is what it seemed like to me. So, I mean, there is so much we can do.
Totally.
And the gua sha has been used forever for the shaft of the penis for helping with, you know, vitality of an erection and, you know, being able to rise to the occasion, as I like to say in the nicest way, you know. And so there's all kinds of techniques where we would be using that gua sha to activate circulation, blood flow. That's circulation.
Yeah. Well, that's actually another beautiful segue into another question someone had for me, was that they had their uterus moved back into the center and then it's moved to the outside again, I believe to the left side. And so if it's safe to move back into center, and if you have any like techniques or suggestions for how to do that.
Well, let's preface, because, you know, we just said like so casually.
I know, so
like
casually.
Moving the uterus.
Just move the uterus. No
and like it
problem.
is casual, actually. And it's very easy to do. So it should be normal and casual. But yeah, so what happens is that's like, you know, considered the female compass. And it has the ability to move back and forth, even though it is attached to the cervical cap. You know, it's all part of this channel. But it can definitely, you know, get kind of pushed over to the one side or the other and causes tons of cramps with menses, like, you know, premenstrual cramps. So usually when somebody says, I have the worst cramps ever, I'm on the bathroom floor, like I hear this a lot. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to check your uterus. Like it can be a game changer. And I would say probably 8 out of 10 times that is what is going on. And that's a pretty high, I just gave a really high statistics.
Yeah, 8 out of 10. That's
like, I really just, and I heard myself, I know what I'm saying. I'm not exaggerating. So there's other reasons why you could be getting cramps and things, but for the most part, that uterus has gotten shifted, and that happens for many different reasons. Like you might be really active. You might've had an accident and gotten jarred to one side or the other, and it'll just kind of go over, and then it doesn't get back right there, you know, in the middle. And that's kind of the same thing if you've ever had a gynecologist say you have a tilted uterus. That's usually what they say, is it's tilted, but we usually think tilted is like this, and it can be one or the other. But often the tilt is a little bit more to the side or the other side. And then it's sitting on your hips. It's also sitting on your ileocecal valve to the left, or it's sitting over on your rectum where you're releasing your stool to the right. And that's not, you know, or on your bladder. So a lot of times somebody would be like, I didn't have a baby and I'm incontinent. What's going on? Is this normal for women? I hear about this. And I'm like, no, not really. You could have a bladder infection that weakened your bladder, and reasons for that. But, you know, for the most part, your uterus could be just slightly over, and it's making it where your bladder can't fill up as full. So you have to urinate quicker. So, and a whole nother reason, if you do have incontinence, you should be guashaing your bladder like crazy, because that is a tonifiable muscle. It's just a bag made of muscle, and it can be activated and stimulated. And I have helped many women with incontinence to tonify their bladders just by starting to go in there and vigorously gua sha. And it just kind of tonifies it up, and then they can hold their urine better. So yeah, so that's a little bit about this idea of like, what are we even talking about with the uterus being out of place? It can happen from different positions of intercourse, like I said, or injury. You know, once in a while, it's like I always lay on my right side when sleeping and it keeps going to the right, but that's not the most common thing. It's a question I get a lot, but it's not actually what I find to be true. And a lot of times it's like you were playing in a tree when you were really little, and it just got off, and then it just, never. And you're like, I've had cramps on and off, and something just always feels off. Like, women don't feel boom in their full on encompassed power if we aren't in alignment.
Yeah.
Because that's like, we are designed that way, and it's our root chakra, it's our foundation, it's our grounding cord. So I'll even find it's women who are like, am I going crazy? I don't even have reason for all this emotion, but it's just there. Like, what's wrong with me? And I will check the uterus when a woman's feeling that way and can't quite track to a trauma or a situation, So usually, this is really getting to the question, usually you move a uterus, and it's topical. This is not internal, not necessary whatsoever. And I must honor Miss Beatrice from Belize, because she is the one who taught me how to do this. I made a promise to her. She took me aside at the Women's Herbal Symposium some 22 years ago. And she said, I know that you will help women with this if I teach this to you. I see what you're doing with all these breast checks, and I really want to bestow this on you. And I made a dedication that, like, when I saw, misaligned hips or heard of these cramps, that I would check the uterus. And it takes like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it is so fast that it makes me really sad to think how many women are walking around not quite being able to find their core, So Miss Beatrice taught this to me. It is a Belizean art. I want to give respect to that. And it is topical. It's done by gravity. And once you know how to do it, you could even move it yourself. So to this person's question, they can move out of place again. The question would become, are you always leaning over into one side? Or are you having intercourse and could there be some positions that aren't necessarily really working for your body, that could be leaning it to that direction. And then the other thing is if it's been over to the other side for a long time, I might have been able to move it, but there might be adhesions and like lymph node matting to the hip.
Yeah.
So what I would answer this question to is get that gua sha going on and really gently but scrape your hip and really see if you have a whole bunch of doing, like little rubber bands, which are adhesions. You want to melt those. That's like spindly little scar tissue your body made to protect you. It was like probably thinking, if you want this uterus over here, like, let me help attach it because it's staying, that type of thing. So sometimes there'll be matting or adhesions that pull it back over. I see that a lot with car accidents or injuries kind of thing. And sometimes it'll be like certain positions you're repetitively utilizing. And so it went back. And then there's the other thing that Miss Beatrice speaks of, which is the masculine feminine, the masculine energy of our right, which is not just provider. We've got this whole thing kind of messed up. Please come to Portugal and learn all about the ways that actually we look at masculine as passive energy and a container. And then we have feminine energy, which is the spark. But the spark is nothing without the container. So we are masculine feminine. I mean, I've been saying forever, my whole career, I've been like, we're all they thems.
Yes.
Like we are all they them, and then there's the bigger part of upholding that as an essence of who you are. But I think it's really fun to think that, like, what a beautiful ownership to take if that's your truth. But the idea, I just have this little chuckle behind me that's like, we all are. Some people just aren't willing to look, or we don't see it that way. So sometimes it'll go over to the left again, and it'll be something in that feminine, relation. It might be a need that's not being met, or a weakness that needs to turn into a strength, or it might go over to masculine and that need isn't being met. Because we literally, according to the Vedic philosophies and Samkhya philosophy, which I'll be teaching within the first 3 days of class, is all about the unity. It's called the will of creation through dualism. And truly, honestly, the Vedas believe, in the Vedic philosophies, they believe that all things created starts with the energy of masculine and feminine in respect, uniting in equality, and being used according to their function. And masculine is passive and feminine is active. So we say, provide and receive, and then that has gotten really imbalanced and messy on a social level. The truth is, it's an avenue container and a spark within it. So receiving that container, but that container is being offered. So there's an offering of container and a receiving so you can spark. But we turned it into this, like, you provide and you stay home. I mean, gosh, I hope that's like totally going out the door here. Been really nice to see the changes from my generation to becoming, a more mature person, and seeing how beautiful our younger generations, like where they're taking this. I hope all of our advocacy through the years is like totally paid off for all you that are getting to, run with concepts that are more conducive to our human truths. Yeah.
And just that choice that every person has, that there is that divine masculine and feminine in every person, and that you have the choice to embody that which you choose to embody.
Yeah.
It's like so empowering.
Yeah. There's been times when that uterus keeps on going back over to the right, and the person's like, why? And and I'll go in and do some intuitive and see if the uterus wants to talk to me, or what do I even get on their body with my hands there. And there's been a few times where I'm kind of like, I think your masculine needs to be utilized more. It's like you're, not wanting to be that, but like that has a value just as much as anything else. Like those are both values.
Totally. That's awesome.
And then you get to decide which one you want to be when you're in relation to humans, right? I'm a complete human. I can use my masculine and my feminine as I choose to. Sometimes I'm a container, and sometimes I'm a spark.
Well, we actually have another question here from Gretchen. Thanks so much for putting this in the chat. And we did have a couple of other chat items that disappeared for some reason. So if you want to type those in again, that would be awesome. So Gretchen asks, my uterus is a retroverted uterus, which means the uterus is tipped backwards so that it aims towards the rectum instead of towards the belly. So when I'm guashaing and dealing with cramps, is it still effective to focus on the front part of my body?
Yes, it is important, because even if it's tilted to the back, you're not going to be able to get to it from your back. So like you could work on your sacrum, and you could gua sha, like all those lymph nodes that go through the pelvic girdle on each side, right at the kind of haunches of our hip. Like we have a whole bunch of lymph nodes in there, and you could work those, and they will sort of sway the back of the uterus, but you're not going to be able to move it from there. And usually it's tilted, but it doesn't mean that, it necessarily is tilted like in a way that it was formed that way and can't move back. So what I'm going to suggest to you is you get a foam roller and you put it right on the sacrum, and you like super extend. You can also go into bridge pose, where you're extending your pelvis to the forward. So either bridge pose, and you could hold that pose and you could massage in there. You're going to create, if you extend yourself forward in your pelvis, and you could just relax on that foam roller, or maybe you need, if that's too hard, you might need like a more like a yoga bolster, and you could do it on a yoga ball too. And you just extend that space wide open, and then you start scooping from your pubis bone, and you make sure you gua sha your whole pubis bone, right at the base of our hips in the center. And a lot of times what happens with those tilted uteruses is there could have been like a young injury, and you got a bunch of scar tissue in there, or like there are mass amounts of lymph nodes in our lower abdomen, which is why we'll also get that kind of lumpy feeling we get in our breasts with menses. and you want to soften and open all of that, that's a great place to do slide cupping. Great place to do slide cupping. And so you just, get some oil on there. You're always going to get more flow with warm tissue. So take a bath, use a hot water bottle, use some hot rocks or a hot compress, get that space warm. Make sure you have a blood glow, right? Which means you can tell that you've got a little bit of blood flow to the surface. Get that blood glow and it'll feel a little warm, right? And then you start going in with the slide cup and you'll feel it. Like if, because the cup pulls this tissue up and then you're sliding, all of a sudden it'll go glunk, 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 glunk. And you're going to be all, what was that? What was that? And it'll be like a lymph node that's like matted, to the pubis bone and matted to the uterus, or it'll be an adhesion or some scar tissue. We have to know that we get adhesions and scar tissue in that space too, from kind of things where the rug was pulled from underneath us, or there was a sexual trauma, or unsafe environments as a child. Like we get scar tissue and lymph kind of, if this was any of this happened, then we start clenching and holding that. And then it holds that uterus in that tilted space. And until you open all that tissue, and again, you're not going to hurt yourself doing this. This is kind of the saddest thing about these conversations right now. Is like, where else are you gonna be hearing this? And that's sad. Yeah. And we aren't really given permission to be like, oh, that thing's pulling on my pubis bone. Maybe I should stretch it out and soften it and tenderize it. So we've kind of got it like, I'm gonna hurt myself. And you're not. We're designed for a 500-pound blow. I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying we are designed.
Your body can take a lot.
Like that's a lot, I don't want to have anything near that. Knock on wood again, but just giving that a concept, that you're not going to hurt yourself by going in there and palpating and touching and finding things that are lumpy and glunky, and then like you start rubbing them out. And the lumpy glunkies go away. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I made total change in my body. Yeah. And so that's a little tricky uterus, but still I've seen those, change just as much. I just usually have to put somebody at quite a tilt and I got to kind of pull it to the surface and then look for those adhesions that are holding it up.
It's great idea. Brilliant. Get a yoga ball.
Everybody, if you're like stumped right now, you're interested, but you're a little stumped on how to really apply what I'm saying, please go look at the reproductive system. Please go look at some pictures of the reproductive system. You have the right to know how your vaginal wall is connected to your cervical cap, where your uterus is and how it's attached, where your fallopian tubes are. And same with anybody. You should know where your vas deferens are. You should know how your testes sit in your scrotum. You should know how your urethra and your where is your bladder and your urethra connected to the penis. Like we should know these things.
Definitely know these things. Yeah.
And if you don't know that visual right now, you also want to look at them side by side. Speaking of dualism, they're identical. It's just one is a triangle down and the other one is a triangle up. Like, I mean, it's like we're totally designed even the same, and that's really nice when you're even thinking about like, what's the truth of your gender? And then maybe even having like a little bit of a struggling with what parts you have according to like who you feel and who you know you are. And I like doing that with people. It's like, first off, just remember all you got to do is, is switch that around in your visions and start considering yourself in like the alignment that you know and feel you are, and then we can, look at the journey of those changing of parts or removing of parts or whatever it is that your journey is really telling you that is true to you.
Yeah. I love that empowerment to just yeah, embody what you want to be and to fully express those parts of yourself that you want to.
Absolutely.
It's so beautiful. All right, well, we have another menstruation question. One more. Okay, so this one's from Bailey. It says, I want to ask your opinion on her short cycles, which are 21 to 24 days, with only a 3 to 5 day luteal phase. She has brown and blackish spotting on the start and end of the period, plus extreme cyclical insomnia. So she says, I know that it's likely low progesterone, but I don't know the best way to fix it. Quai, Vitex, best way to support the liver. So she's just curious what you have to say.
Okay. Okay, so I am going to put one thing out to this question, which is there are times when I'll give a few different options. This could be a few different things. But the first option I'm going to give to this is going to be speaking again of the uterus being out. So if your uterus is out of place, sometimes it doesn't have, if it's off kilter, offset, it doesn't have as much room sometimes where it's living to fill up. So it dumps out very quickly. And then that becomes sort of like your new cycle, that is one thing that I have seen with that. And so I just want to give a little shout out to that concept. The other one is if you have an atonic uterus. So an atonic uterus is going to be where it's literally not tonified and being, excuse me, basically exercised enough. And it's just kind of a little untonified. It's atonic. And if that's the case, that's where that gua sha is going to really get it moving and stimulated, and you can exercise that uterus muscle just like a bladder, and you could retonify it. And you may be that your uterus isn't tonified enough to hold blood to its fullest potential. So the reason I mention those first is because those aren't really about your progesterone. They're about your uterus's ability to collect blood and a full amount of blood and then slough according. Okay, so that's just one concept. The other concept would be that there's a low progesterone if you were just having early cycle. But if you're having a low ovulation and luteinizing phase, like if you're having that as a short and then having menses onset soon, that tells me that there may be, now we're really at hydration, but it really may be that there's not enough juice and water. And, water volume is blood pressure. So if you have low blood pressure, this is a really big key, ding, ding, ding right now. And I find this to be true with a lot of women with low blood pressure, because that means they have low water volume, they have low blood pressure moving through their system. And that means that basically what happens is you don't have like full voluminous oozing of your ovum and full viability of your estrogen. And then that slows down then your progesterone. If you don't have a bunch of estrogen, you're not going to make a bunch of progesterone. So being that I'm hearing both of those going on, it makes me, a little bit consider what it would be for you to get like some really good, like what we call an Ayurveda ojas building. Yes. And ojas is just the building blocks. So like, are you getting enough collagen? Are you getting enough lecithin? Are you getting enough hyaluronic acid? Those are the three main building blocks of our tissues and the making of our blood, which is one of our 7 tissues. FYI, starting in October, I am doing a 7-month series of blogs on each tissue: lymph, blood, muscle, skin, bones, nerves, reproductive, through Banyan Botanicals, who I've known their entire business life, and they've known me my entire business life. So they're actually dear old friends. But I'm doing a 7-month blog for Banyan Botanicals on each one of the tissues. So please be looking for that. And we'll talk more about that. how do we see blood as a tissue?
Mm.
But you got to build blood if you want to kind of have that full volume. And then that way we're not just like, oh, you need estrogenic herbs or you need progesterone based herbs. I don't like to go down tweaking hormones until it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't find that it's always what works through my years of practice. I like to make your body terrain so juicy and vital and as it should be, because we all have our own unique constitutions. And you are ticking as the best pitta kapha I can be. You were ticking as the best
Tridoshik
that you can be, or the best vata kapha you can be, whatever you are. You want to, be in your most healthy alignment. And so if this person is a little bit depleted or dehydrated or feels a little, doesn't quite have that blood pressure longevity, then I'd say that's where you'd want to start. So I would put you on ashwagandha shatavari, a teaspoon each night. There's a lot of conversation about estrogenic herbs. It even came up on another Zoom with a supporting team I'm on for, a special human in our life, and we're her health support. And we were talking about that too. Just like, gosh, everything has phytoestrogens in it.
Yeah.
Like now it's showing up everywhere. And it's like, okay, but we got to be thinking which ones are scary amounts, or maybe we shouldn't be eating all those foods and herbs at the same time. But we also are getting a little estrogenic scared too. Even if we need to pay attention, we don't want to be like, well, there's phytoestrogen in ashwagandha, I can't take it. It's like the amounts in there are so low and minuscule. And it's part of like literally what helps the plant become nourishing, and so we don't want to make that like scary and bad. Otherwise, we're going to stop using like almost every plant you could think of at this point, because almost every plant has a certain level. So I'm hoping we're going to start getting more research on like the levels of phytoestrogen. And that one I know that Ayurveda has already done the research on. So it has very low, amounts. So I
Okay, now we're live again.
Okay, good. Hi.
Back to chia pudding.
Yeah, back to chia pudding. But I would also be thinking about like you need omegas to absorb.
All right.
Hey, I live out in the mountains.
Yes, we're out in the hills.
And it's
Like everyone's
foggy.
sticking with us. Yep.
Out in the mountains in the fog. We're going to have some little back and forth, but hopefully you're hanging in there with us.
Yeah.
And I was talking about evening primrose, and I was talking about Vitex. The evening primrose is 4,000 milligrams a day. That's a long-term dose. You don't want to go high. You need more EFAs than that. Most people need 8,000 a day. So it's a portion of your omega taken. And then Vitex is 1 drop a day in the belly button. It's strong, it's stable, and usually it takes more like 2 months to really see that it regulated you versus the 4 to 6 months that tincture can take. So I prefer it. And yeah, I have that Vitex oil because it's very important to many people who are trying to regulate their cycle. And I like it for helping to, get that a little bit longer. I don't use Vitex so much when somebody's already in the like 45 days or out every 45 days. I usually go a different direction with that. I use rose geranium and, I use clary sage, and those dosages are much higher. So, I'd be using more like 6 drops twice a day. That's how strong the Vitex essential oil is. You only need 1 drop, but I like it for getting just a little bit longer out. Yeah.
And you find that 1 drop to be kind of true for everyone?
I'd say that's going to be my general rule when I'm talking to kind of like everybody.
Yeah.
And then, maybe if you run a little colder or you have a little more deficiency, I might take it up to 2 drops, but mostly I'm noticing that's all it really takes, and it's just staying with it. So those are some of my ideas.
That's awesome.
I have some emotional ideas, but sometimes when people are more when they're seers, meaning like they think they're too sensitive. I say they're just like more seers. That is, they sense things. And unfortunately, some people end up syncing with others, just like boom. And you're just like, what? I was in line in the grocery store.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, what happened? So there are times when it becomes more of a sovereignty and kind of like holding your own and not giving too much of like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then that puts you in a position where you're like, I'm going to sync with you and you and you. Instead, you're like, nope, I know I'm going to be 28 days out no matter what's going on. So some people get those kind of onsets from energy around them. Just another concept there.
Yeah. And do you think that the cyclical and hormonal insomnia will be also assisted with the Vitex and just generally nourishing those ojas?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like insomnia is most common. There's 2 types of insomnia in Ayurveda. One is the like monkey mind vata, and it's like this. You're like, let me go over there. Let me take a bath. Let me, you're like all over the place. And that shows depletion. We'd be back to omegas and electrolytes, and man, I'd get on some bone broth. Just because you get hyaluronic acid and collagen and lecithin really quick there. You can get it from sunflower butter, and you can get it from many egg yolks. Just, there are some places we can get it. And then there's the other form of insomnia, which is the person who, is a little more fiery. And so they're kind of like, she said so-and-so, she said so-and-so, like they're fixed on one, like, I got to do that tomorrow. I got to do that tomorrow. And that usually is somebody who maybe has more of the, like old blood that keeps kind of sloughing quick, old blood sloughing quick, it's like, it's throwing you into like a fiery detox. So, I wouldn't call Vitex a sleep supporter. I might add some like 4 drops of clary sage at night. So do your 1 drop of Vitex in the morning and do 4 drops of clary sage to sleep. And you're staying in that reproductive relation, but it actually is somewhat of a sleeping aid. But hopefully if you figure this, if you get more hydrated, you're probably going to sleep better. And it's just that your body's elevated with,
Yeah, that's the way that she's described it to me before, is that it feels like a nervous system thing, that it, like all of a sudden it's just like at night, like the nervous system. So I wonder if it is that more like vata.
Yeah.
And having more of that like nourishing Yeah, but I also wonder, another thing she's expressed is parasites. And so I'm curious if you know, like if parasites can affect the reproductive at all, like if there's any relation there between that like depletion state and, or if they're just totally different in your mind.
You can, it's pretty rare, but you
Uh-huh.
can get a parasite like up in your
Oh
yoni.
yeah, not necessarily.
But if you have parasites digestively, like our
Exactly.
typical picture of,
Uh-huh.
I mean, parasites are the most vata pitta little chompers ever.
Uh-huh.
You know, they're like yum 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 yum. You know, I mean,
Uh-huh.
they're so frenetic and
Mhm.
they cause major anxiety
Mhm.
and will give you insomnia.
Mhm.
You know, whereas amoebas are way slimy and sticky, and people gain weight and they get depression and they oversleep. They're
Mhm.
very different energetically. So if there is a parasitic picture, it would be definitely making more vata,
Mhm.
which would then eventually translate to affecting many places.
Mhm.
And yes, reproductive's one of them.
Yeah.
But I would think if it was from the parasite, I would think she's had the parasites for some time.
Yeah, I think that's
like
the
a couple
case.
years,
Mhm.
at least. Like
Mhm.
that probably wouldn't happen over a 6-month period.
Mhm.
So
Just painting the whole picture here. Hopefully that helps.
you should send me, you should get a tongue assessment.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
You should send me those pictures. It goes step by step. The tongue assessment is pretty amazing.
It really
And
is.
I'm pretty good at my intuition with the tongue. Like it's the segue to somebody's body. It's like, I see, but I also know how to read the tongue itself. And it takes you through, you send me pictures, and then I have this beautiful template that like goes through and looks, you know, I mean, we can read microbes on the tongue. I do not diagnose. I'm just doing assessments. I'm doing Ayurvedic assessments and looking at, you know, what's been figured out from time gone by in multiple traditions, actually. And so, you know, I'm just giving a more holistic assessment and the things we see with parasites, the things we see with amoebas, or, you know, they'll show up on the tongue. So, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing a picture of your tongue there. It's only $59.
Exactly.
It's a lot of information. I read all the emotional cracks too from childhood. And that's where my intuition really shines. Yeah.
It's such an amazing resource. I'm going to have to send you a picture of my tongue too. And then you can get the custom essential oil blend.
Change your name so I don't know who you are.
Perfect.
I like to.
See if you can be like, wait a second.
I don't want to be all, is that Abby? Now let me forget what I know.
Yeah, exactly. Reset.
Which I can do. But it would be good to do a little random.
Awesome. Well, we're just wrapping up here. So are there any last things? We should definitely talk a little bit about Portugal and any other things that's really speaking on your heart.
Well, the best thing about Portugal, I have a few openings left. I am I am holding a goal that I am completely filling this thing up, and I'm excited to do it. So I am looking for like another 4 people. That's what we need. We need 4 more people to come forward. I first just want to say I am loving all the people that are coming to Portugal. So I just think like anyone who could possibly join this amazing group that's come together would be so happy. It's very well balanced. And, you know, there's people coming from so many different backgrounds. Everyone knows I'm kind of driven by diversity and respecting of individuals. And we have a whole lot of amazing individuals coming. And that just makes me super happy. Yeah, don't forget about the double occupancy. I think that's the best deal around.
It really is. Yeah.
You know, $8,000 for 2 people to go to Portugal and stay in like Magic Wonderland for 24 days. Yeah. I promise I'll keep you entertained.
Yep. So imagine this for 24 days.
Amazing, huge book. I mean, huge. Oh, you should go grab it. It's right there. Huge book. It's like a life book of info. And I would say, though, if anybody wants to go to Portugal and you're stopping because of funds and money, I do want you to know that we will create a payment plan for you. You would just contact Abby at info@DeAnnaessentials.com. And if you go there and talk to Abby, like we can come up with like a reasonable payment plan that maybe we could stretch out through the end of the year. You know, you pay your deposit and then we just kind of slow filter it out so you can actually get back home, make that money, make the rest of your payments. And yeah, show them the book.
Look at this amazing textbook of knowledge. You'll have to bring an extra suitcase.
Yes.
I mean, there's just so much amazing information in here. I'm looking through here, just flipping through. It's like anatomy, all the tissues, all the different herbs. See some shit.
All the assessment tools, how to read the face and the tongue and the skin. And we even do like the foundations and basics of how to read pulse, because you could learn how to read your own. So you could be wanting to be your own practitioner or be a practitioner to your family, or you could be a practitioner who wants to use all of this knowledge base in your already existing practice. Like you can come be a brand new newbie. We've got a few people who it's so new to them. They're like, am I going to be able to keep up? And I'm like, you're just getting started. You don't have to, you know, you've got your book,
to start.
you know, and then others are pretty seasoned practitioners and they're wanting to kind of get into deeper realms of you know, clinical study. So it has a little bit of everybody for everybody, but it is a double occupancy is the best deal around. And if you're wanting to single occupancy, it's $5,200. And again, you could contact Abby at info@DeAnnaessentials.com and we can like devise a payment plan for you and make this something that you can make happen in your life. If it's too much and you know you can't do it, you might want to think about body mapping, because that's 7 sacred Saturdays. It actually starts the day after I return from Portugal.
Wow. Dive right in.
I can't think of a better way to do it. And I'm teaching it through Gathering Time. So it'll be in Marin County, you know, and I'll be in person teaching body mapping, and it'll be simultaneously online via Zoom. So it's the first time that I'm doing it in that format. But yeah, very, very excited about that too. And that's quite a wonderful course too, but it's a little bit of a, you know, reasonable bite size versus like an entire meal and dessert of clinical.
Exactly. And I'll make sure to put all those links in the show notes, and you can go to our website, DeAnnaessentials.com, and you can submit questions for next week, and you can check out all those amazing courses, all of these great products and essential oils that DeAnna has been talking about. All that's on our website, DeAnnaessentials.com. Yeah, well, thank you so much, DeAnna. This has been so insightful and inspiring for me. So I hope it's been super helpful for everyone. Thank you for your questions.
One other thing you can put in the link, if you would, Abby, is I have she supported making all my upcoming classes through next March in just a little 1 page. And it'd be good for everybody to know that, because I am teaching body work techniques, very specific topics, January, February, March on 3-day weekends, which are quite doable. So yeah, lots of ways you can continue with me. And I'm glad we also have this venue that is free and available to all people to heal, learn, and grow. And to really be able to say, this is my body and I am allowed to touch it and listen to it and make choices accordingly and feel better.
Yes. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend. Thanks, everyone.